Hello and welcome. I'm Excellent, and this is my podcast. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Tracy.
How are you?
As always, living the dream.
I'm doing pretty good today. I'm actually doing very good today. My baby turned 18, which was sad, but I'm almost free to run away.
Oh, dear me.
You know what happened? At midnight, I got a text message from our pharmacist, our pharmacy, and they said, your son is now an adult and he has to have his own account. You can no longer view his medications. Which, who do you think is paying for those?
did
Yes.
you actually get that?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. They don't waste any time, do they?
I know. It was really, really sad.
It's a bit inappropriate.
I know. Get the fuck out of here now. You know,
There's your money gone.
he's a senior in high school, so he still has, he's still going to be living under my roof and everything. But yeah, they were just like, he's an adult. Kick him out of the nest. So anyway, what have you been up to, Rob?
Just the having the girls and took the girls on. They go back to school in a week. So um, yeah,
Oh,
just normal everyday daddy stuff.
do what I
Just
bought?
normal. Pardon?
Do you want to know what I bought?
But you bought.
What I bought?
Hey, go on then.
Halloween decorations.
Oh, should have fell into that. Should have known that. Obviously.
I have a sign on my door. You want to know what it says?
What's that?
The witch is in.
Well, I went into. It's funny actually. You should mention Halloween decorations because I went into our. If you live in the UK, you'll know what B&M is. A big department store, big huge place, and they're getting all they're clearing the shelves to put their Halloween decorations in.
Ah.
So
This is how my year goes, okay? So, January 1st. Well, no. December 26th. Huge bout of depression starts. And and then I think, okay, well, I'll make it to my birthday, which is in March. And then it's only a few more months until June. And from June, it's almost August. And from August to September, and September is the start of holiday season. It's the first day of Halloween in my house. And that is actually how my brain works. That's how I get through all the hot part of the Texas heat.
then
It's
it's
just,
Christmas.
and then it's Christmas. And then December 26th comes, and I go, boom again.
Uh,
Boom. I like the build up. I like the excitement. And then when it's
yeah,
over, it's a huge letdown for me. Other people like that?
I don't know. I think there is a bit of an anticlimax around Christmas. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work this year. um,
Yeah.
should be. It's going
We'll be
to.
throwing presents to our family members 6 feet away.
We're having present drops from the sky.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Halloween's going to be screwed. Because, I mean, are you going to send your kids from stranger's house to stranger's house? Might I have some COVID, please? I mean, it's going to be different. But not in my house. In my house is going to be some Halloween. Speaking of that, if you would like something of yours, your true paranormal experience, or a story you've written, please send it to me. so that I can prepare it to be on the channel for the 31 days of Halloween, because that is starting next month, Rob.
I know time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, I guess. And well, I don't know. I got slingshotted. It was the longest March ever. It was 180 days of spring break here. So, if you guys would like to participate, we would love to have the community participate with their own stories. If you have a mysterious person vanished, I don't care. Whatever, that fits. Send it to me and I'll give you full credit. And if you have your own channel, I'll link to that and give you credit. And I would really like Halloween to be uh, community event. A community event this year, starring you guys.
Mm.
So I think that'd be fun. Also, you could buy some merchandise, and I don't know, give it away for Christmas presents or Halloween. Wear it for Halloween. I go bump in the night. That's a good one. I'd rather be scared. That's a good one. So feel free to do that. Also have bags, and if you do go trick or treating your kids, they can use those exit light bags. Awesome. Okay. Anyway, what are we talking about today, Rob?
We are talking about a gentleman called Travis Walton, and we did. If you listen to our last podcast, we did mention him there. He was supposedly, allegedly, abducted by aliens for a week, where he had various things done to him, and we are going to be talking about him today because we got into a conversation about him, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked about him and talked about him and talked about him and talked about him, and then I think you said we should do this on a podcast.
I did.
So there you go.
Yeah.
That's why we're
And
doing
so
it.
then I said to you, stop talking to me about this, Rob.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's how it
So
works usually.
that is what we do. Stop talking. We should do a podcast on this because what if blah 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 blah? And I'm like, let's stop talking. Um, Now he was one of the four people you had invited to the dinner,
Yeah.
and I think I had him mixed up with Betty and Barney. What's it, Rubble?
Hill.
What Hill?
Yeah,
Is
I
their
think
name Betty and Barney?
yeah, I know. I know.
That's I didn't put that together before. Betty and Barney Rubble, the Flintstones. Anyway, okay. So I think I had him confused with Barney, but he's not Barney, obviously. So what happened was I watched a documentary on something, some various, I don't know, like Amazon Prime or something. And then I was like, oh, this is the guy. I was incorrect in my thinking. So that's why I decided that like it'd be interesting to talk about the documentary, his story. Do we believe it? Do we not believe it? And you guys down below, you can tell us if you know about Travis Walton's story, um, if you guys believe it.
Mm.
So let me introduce you to Travis for a second, in case you are like me and I don't know, you get all your abducted people mixed up. The Travis Walton UFO incident was an alleged alien abduction of an American forestry worker. Travis Walton was supposedly abducted by a UFO on November 5th of 1975 while he was working in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. And what they were doing was they were clearing out dead trees to keep forest fires from, being an issue. So that's what they did. They would log the dead trees, pull them out. Um, and it's near Snowflake, Arizona. And do you guys want to hear my story about Snowflake, Arizona? I told Rob because we were talking about it. Do you want to hear my story? Should I say it, Rob?
Yeah, go on. It's not that long.
Okay, so Snowflake, Arizona. We went camping up in Sholo, Arizona, and I think it was Sholo. Anyway, and by camping I mean we rented a cabin with a full kitchen. and and
You
so
sounded so American then.
I did.
We went camping. We went camping.
Are you making fun of my American accent?
Would I do that?
Yes. So we went camping. I don't know how to say it a different way, and we decided to explore the area because people don't really know that Arizona is half desert, half mountains, with pine trees and snow and ski resorts. So you, I don't know if it's half and half, but there's a large portion that is not desert. Okay. So we decided to explore the area. It was really cool out and nice, and it was a good break because from the summer heat of lower Arizona where we lived. So we went to Snowflake, Arizona, because if you know anything about me, you're going to know this. I love Halloween and I love Christmas. I love Christmas in a ridiculous manner. So we decided to go to Snowflake, Arizona, which is named from a man whose last name was Snow and a man whose last name was Flake. And if anybody knows, the previous governor of Arizona was Jeff Flake. Anyway, so the family still resides there. The part of the story as we drove into this town, like, and the tumbleweeds crossed the road like that. It was just like that. Tumbleweeds. And there was this like mom and pop brick building, tall, and it was a cafe and it had antiques in it. This is a long time. So if you happen to be in Snowflake, Arizona right now and you don't know what I'm talking about, my bad. We stopped there because where we lived, there was no like mom and pop like burger joints or individually owned restaurants. Everything was a chain restaurant. And I was not used to that having come from Washington. So we stopped because I'm like, okay, cool, because they have a Christmas part of this antique shop. And what's better than spooky Christmas, old Christmas shit, right? Right? So we go in there with, well, I think we had all four kids by then. We walk in there, and first off, the town feels weird. You know, you get that vibe from something, and it felt, weird going in. We walk in, and there's a really beautiful bar area, um, and it's got like I don't even know, 10 to between 10 and 15 bar stools at the bar, and it's like a lunch counter. You know, the old fashioned lunch counters?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like that, but like wooden and really nice. And the bell on the door goes ding a ling a ling a ling. And I'm not kidding you. From the back person, like dominoes, a head turned towards us, a head turned, a head turned, a head turned, a head turned. And they stared at us. And it was creepy. So JD whispers, I don't want to, I don't want to eat here. It's weird. So I was like, we can't just like, we can't walk in the door and be like, my bad. I thought this was a different antique diner. So I walked back to the antiques and I picked something up and I'm like, okay, let's get the hell out of here. And then they all just followed us silently as we walked out the door. They just eyes. It was like Children of the Corn. It was the weirdest thing. If you guys want to go to Snowflake, Arizona, I'm sure it's a lovely, lovely place. Just stay away from the haunted antique diner. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Sorry. Got off track there, which is typical. The Walton case received mainstream publicity and remains one of the best known alien abduction stories. Skeptics consider it a hoax, obviously. Walton wrote a book about his abduction in 1978. It was called The Walton Experience. That was adapted into a 1993 film called Fire in the Sky,
which I have seen and I would recommend. It is very, very good.
So in the documentary, there's 7. Is there 7 people out there together? 6 people, and then him.
6 people. Yeah.
Okay, so they're working really late because what happens is, I guess, they had a contract to do a certain amount of land, to have a certain sized area of land cleared, and if they by a certain time, and if they didn't hold up their end of the contract, then the person who hired them won't pay them. So he said they would, take it easy for a while and then they would hustle at the end to get it done really quick. So they worked really late. They were leaving the site they were working and saw a bunch of light behind these trees.
Yeah.
And so they decided we should go look at the light, see what it is, because they said it was pitch black. There was, no light other than stars, except for this huge blue light. So they pull down this. I guess it's a road, but it's not. There's no road there now. You have to hike into it. And they won't tell anybody the GPS coordinates for where it is because they don't want people going up there and like taking souvenirs, pieces of trees and whatnot.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the only people that know the coordinates are the people who were there and then the people who were doing the documentary. Otherwise, nobody else knows how to get there. Nobody. And that sucks because I go to Arizona and I was like, oh, how exciting. I'll go, but no, I will not. So they go, and for some reason, he decides to get out of the car. Travis does. Out of the truck. They were in the truck. He decides to get out of the truck and run towards the light, which had this really high pitched buzzing sound. I don't know about you, but I have seen a UFO where I actually drove up onto it. And I would never run towards it. And so he gets picked up by this force and then slammed onto the ground. So he's picked up and his arms and everything are hanging down, his legs. That's a famous, I think it's like one of the most famous UFO sighting drawings is, him hanging there with his arms hanging down and stuff. Well, I guess it just like slammed him down so hard that he bounced off the ground, his friend said. And they thought he was dead. So, like all good friends do, they got back in the truck and left.
Yeah.
And I mean, with friends like those. So they were accused of murdering him.
Yep.
And, of course they said they had murdered him. They went back there. They did go back. They did drive away, and one of the guys said, I can't do this. We have to go back. His name was Mike, I believe. They went back, and he wasn't there. So they couldn't tell his family or the police or anything what happened. I mean, they told them what happened, but they didn't know where his body was after that. So 5 days later, he calls his buddy on the phone from a payphone. He wakes up in the middle of the street. Um, and he wakes up in the middle of the street with the ship in it. The ship zooms away. He goes to a payphone. He calls his buddy, and this is the story that he tells everybody. You want to tell it, Rob?
Yeah, I will do.
Okay, so go ahead.
So basically, what he says that he was abducted by aliens, and he saw three aliens. Um, once his head had cleared and he could sort of comprehend what was happening, as well as comprehend as best as he could what was happening. He saw 3 or 4 alien figures, small, with the um, the generic looking little grey alien. Plus, he
Uh,
saw.
oh,
So go
sorry.
on, Trace. Go on.
Yeah, in the documentary, he called them men.
Well, I I've read that there was men there as well.
Yeah, later he sees a man, but at the time he identified these alien things as men, and I don't. I mean, I mean, we're not going to have this conversation where somebody below tells me why they knew that Bigfoot was a female and not a male. So I don't know if there was anatomical reasons that he knew they were men, but he was certain that they were men, male.
Well, they were okay. Um, like Tracy said, and then later on he um, supposedly saw a human
Yeah.
looking person thing, alien,
Hmm.
um,
Or human, maybe.
or human. Um, there's a there's two. Well, there's lots and lots of different scenarios that people think happened. One of them is he was abducted by aliens, and everybody on the ship was an alien. There's another chain of thinking that says that it was aliens plus it was something to do with the government in partnership with the aliens, and he was just unfortunate enough to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that the aliens had got some kind of agreement with the government that they could abduct a certain amount of people and a certain amount of um, animals and do tests on them, and in exchange for technology,
Mm.
which is really if you really think about that, it's really scary because it's like
Mm.
we're just being treated like cattle, really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like when he was dropped off, um, he had no. He didn't realize what had happened. He didn't know how much time had passed at all. He didn't know. I think
Mm-hmm.
he thought it was a few
Yeah,
hours,
yeah, he did.
and he didn't realize it had been a week. He had um, there was something about his beard, wasn't there?
Yeah, he said to his friend, like, I don't know where the last couple hours went, and he said, um, "Feel your face."
Yeah,
And he said, what? And he goes, "Feel your face." And he said that he had, Travis had a 5 days worth of growth of beard on his face.
yeah,
Well, he said that he tried to fight them. He picked up a glass cylinder, tried to break it so that he could like cut them, and they were very calm. And they walked out of the room. And he ran out, and he ran down the hall, and he ran into saw this other room. He ran into this room, and as soon as he walked in and the door closed, it looked like he was standing in outer space. Just there was no walls. It was just clear.
Mm.
And there was a chair there, and then down lower there was a console of some sort, and kind of like Captain Kirk. That's the setup. It was high, and then the console was down low. And that's when the guy who was human and wearing a glass or whatever it was, like a helmet, like a old fashioned scuba suit thing, but glass over his head.
Right.
Yeah, walked him back into a room, laid him down, put a plastic thing over his face like you would still do to be put to sleep to this day. And then he woke up on the street. That's what he says happened. He's taken several lie detector tests.
Yeah, they all have actually.
Yeah, they all had to take lie detector tests. One of them refused for whatever reason. He hired a lawyer, and his you know he was afraid that, well, a couple of them had previous run-ins with the law, so, and like were on parole, so they were afraid that if he came back with a bad lie detector test, he could be arrested for something.
Yeah.
But he eventually took one and passed. Travis said that for, well, it happened, I don't know, 30 something years ago, 32 years ago. 35 years ago. He said that he forever thought that they meant him harm, that he got too close to the craft, and that's why they threw him to the ground. But he now believes that, well, they did something, did throw him to the ground, but he doesn't. It might have been like a shield or a protective energy, and that they knew they had hurt him, so that's why they took him onto the ship to fix him.
Right.
And he says he now believes that that's it, because if they had wanted him dead, he would be dead.
Yeah. Did it say in the documentary that you watched, a couple of the guys, not Travis, but a couple of the other guys, while they were in the police station, they were being recorded talking
Yeah.
about what had happened, and they were talking to each other as though it had happened. It wasn't as though they were making up a story. They didn't know they were being recorded, but they were recorded saying exactly what they told the police, and saying that no one would believe them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, did it say that in the
It
documentary
did
as
say
well?
that they were recorded, but they didn't. But I don't remember them saying what they caught on the recording. So that's interesting.
Yeah, because they thought that if they recorded them, they would start saying that it's
Remember,
all
this
a
is our
bit.
story.
Yeah, we got to get our story straight, and and
Yeah.
this didn't happen, and that didn't happen, and blah blah blah. But no, it was like they were scared. They were scared um, that it was going to come and happen to them,
Right.
um, and that they were scared for their families. They were scared for each other. They were scared for themselves. But
Right.
and they didn't honestly know where, because they kept asking them where is Travis? Where is Travis? Where is Travis?
Mm-hmm.
What have you done with him? Where have you put the body? Where have you And
Yeah.
they honestly didn't know. And like Tracy said, that they were given lie detector tests, and they all passed them, other than the guy that wouldn't take one. But then he did pass one,
Mm-hmm.
and Travis has took so many lie detector tests. I've even seen a documentary with him taking the lie detector test.
Well, he was in a room with the light. They had a lie detector guy. They had police, they had FBI, they had psychologists, psychiatrists in the room, and he took the lie detector test and passed. And they all believed that it was a true story.
Mm.
Now, you can hallucinate and fully believe that what you saw was a true story.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he had 6 other people see this happen to him.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just him saying, I was driving down the street and, suddenly I was abducted. He had all these witnesses who were also passing the tests. But then they talk about in the documentary this skeptic who went after him like a rabid dog. And they said that this guy would call the guys' employers. They all got fired from this logging company, by the way, which I I don't understand that, but they all got fired. Um, they would call their employers and this guy would harass them and stuff. Um, and his name is Philip Class. They all, when in this documentary, they all loathe him. They said that he profited off of what happened to them. One of the guys moved out of the state and everything, just went away because they he couldn't stand living in the same place. Travis never moved. He stayed there the whole time. He couldn't get a job. People looked at him and called him a nut job and a kook and all this stuff. But this guy, Class, would go on TV shows, would go on talk shows and the news and say
Yeah.
that they were crazy and they were liars and they were just trying to profit, which wasn't true because they had the National Enquirer had offered $5,000 for them to like take a polygraph test and um, um, uh, tell them their story. Other places had offered them thousands and thousands of dollars for them to tell their story, and none of them ever did. Not one ever did until Travis wrote his book. But I mean, that was his story to tell. Um, but this guy, as it turns out, and this is very interesting. So he went on and said that the polygraph tests were poorly administered. Now, the polygraph tests, the multiple tests that Travis had taken, were poorly administered. Like the guy who did his polygraph test, this guy at the time, there were only like I think uh, I don't have the number straight, but it was under 30. Polygraphs were pretty new,
Yeah.
relatively new, and he had to take a test. All the police department, everybody in the police department had to take this test, an aptitude test, and he came out number one in the state of Arizona. So they sent him to New York to be trained to learn how to do polygraph tests, and that's how um, everybody at the time had become the person who could do polygraph tests. So he had to travel around the country. He traveled around the world to do polygraph tests um, because he was one of only a handful of people to be trained and had scored the highest out of the entire police force in Arizona. So he's a reliable guy who knows his job. And then, of course, they had other people who gave them lie detector tests. So Class said that they were given, poorly, that they were using polygraph countermeasures like holding their breath. He said he found an earlier test that said that he was lying, which was absolutely not true. That was an actual lie. And the guy who gave the polygraph and the sheriff both said that it was not true, that there was no such test. Well, here's the weird part. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
This guy, this Class guy, as it turns out, this history reveals things, had this connection. He always wanted to be, and I For the life of me, can't remember if it was the FBI or the CIA. Now, the CIA is not supposed to operate in the United States.
No.
And there's only supposed to be for other countries. The FBI is for operating in the United States. So let's say the FBI, but I think it was the CIA. Anyway, one is more scary than the other. That's all. So this class guy always wanted to be in whichever one this was. Knew a bunch of people, had gone and taken the test, hung out with them, and it turns out that he was working for them. They hired him to infiltrate Travis and his friends, to drag their names in the mud, to make people, they have paperwork and everything that shows this, to make people not believe the story. And so he worked his ass off to make sure that people would not believe Travis's story, that he was a kook and his friends were kooks and liars. He said they were on drugs, that they were alcoholics. And you know, you're not going down, you're not going carrying logs and logging high or drunk.
No.
They would leave there and maybe go to a bar, but they're not doing it high or drunk.
No, you won't be able to.
No. So anyway, so it turns out that the government had hired him to be this nasty little mole who went after them to discredit them. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that adds to the whole. I mean, other than this year when we supposedly they told us that UFOs are true, and
Yes.
the government have always been the on the side of, well, they're not true. UFOs don't exist. It's just weather balloons. It's just different atmospheric whatever's,
Swamp gas.
swamp gas, and all stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you the Travis Walton fire in the sky, if you put that to one side for a second, there are loads and loads of different cases of people that have been abducted, people that have been abducted and then put back, human and cattle mutilations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where the government are supposedly involved somehow. There is definitely something going on out there that we're not being told. And I remember watching it. I can't remember what the guy was called, but he was working for the government, and there was supposedly somewhere in America, one of the Air Force bases that was out in the middle of nowhere, a really big facility under the ground. Sorry, I nearly said underneath the ground, but under the ground, underground. And on the bottom floor was basically. I mean, it sounds fantastic, but this is what they said. That was basically aliens, and they had the bottom floor, and they were allowed to take animals and people, and something happened, and they weren't abiding to the contract that they basically agreed to, and they went down, and he went down with some Marines basically to kill the aliens, and I remember hearing him give a speech at a UFO conference, and he said that this alien had fired at him, and it took his hand off, and it cut open his stomach like a knife through butter. So they asked, "Well, can we see the scar?" Obviously, it would have left a scar, and he
And
pulled
he
his
didn't
top.
have a hand.
Didn't have a hand, and he pulled his top up, and it was all scarring where they stitched him back together.
Hmm.
Um, so obviously, go back to Travis Walton and back to this is what I think was going on. Obviously, they didn't. We don't. He doesn't know what happened to him during that 5 days. He doesn't know
Mm-hmm.
what kind of experiments were done, whether there was anything done to. I mean, like you said, Tracy, it could have been the fact that he was hurt and they were just trying to make him better.
Yeah, well, the guys, his friends who witnessed, they said that there was no way that with the force that he was thrown down to the ground, that he would not have broken every bone in his body.
Oh,
He was raised super high and then just thrown to the ground. Like he said, the guy goes, "You literally bounced off the ground." He goes, "You looked like a rag doll." I mean, it didn't look, he said, it didn't look like you had bones in your body.
yeah, that's and obviously when he came back a week later, he was okay.
Yeah.
He didn't have anything wrong with him other than the fact that he had a week's worth of time that he'd lost and a week's worth of beard that had grown when he thought it was
Mm-hmm.
only a couple of hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that, talking about the government saying that there's UFOs, which I have to laugh about because 2020 has been so effed up that in the middle of it, we're told that UFOs are real and nobody gives a shite. Like, we're like, okay, but where can I get a mask? It's just so. I mean, if you were ever going to release sensitive information, right now is the time to do it, right? Like, and by the way, there's a Bigfoot. Don't go into the national forests, stuff like that. But what I think, what does lend credibility is that the government has now admitted that there are, unidentified flying objects, which I knew, by the way, because I've seen one. And for real quick, for people who didn't know my story, because a lot of people are new here, um, real quick, I was driving home from work. It was like somewhere between, I don't even know, 11 and midnight, let's say. I saw a light over, you know how you can see a far distance.
Yeah,
And I was up on a hill. So I was up on a hill. And I could see a light over by where my apartment was. It looked like stadium lights. So, I mean, it was not a big deal. But there wasn't a stadium. So that part was odd. But I did have that thinking in my brain, like, what's over there? And I was running through, like, I don't think there's anything. Anyway, so I'm driving and I'm getting closer. The light's not moving. It's still there. And I'm coming closer and I'm realizing it's not as large. The light is what's causing the light is not as large as the light appears. It's not stadium sized.
yeah,
And I turned on the street to go towards my apartment, and there was like a strip mall on the right side of the street, and then my apartment was on the left side of the street. And at the end of the strip mall was a round, dark, matte colored UFO, like black, matte, like UFO. And what was weird was the day before, the guy I was dating came to work and said, "I think I just saw a stealth." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "I think I just saw a stealth airplane flying out there." And I joked with him, and I was like, "That doesn't make it very stealthy." So my first thought was, "Oh, is this the stealth?" But it was round. It was hovering. and there was blinking lights going around it.
Was it making
It
any
was
noise?
it was the faintest, softest, tiniest bit of a hum. Like more, maybe even just vibrations in the air.
Yeah.
That your ears can like feel. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It was summer, so my windows were rolled down because that's it was back in the day. I couldn't afford a real car, so I stopped my car and I sat there and looked at it, and because I kept thinking, trying to, my brain was like trying to process,
Yeah.
you know, what is a logical answer for what I'm seeing right now, you
Yeah.
know, and I landed on, holy F, I'm going to be on a talk show talking about my probe. So I flew, I gunned it like NASCAR down through my parking garage with the bumps and how they have the bumps to slow you down.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't matter, didn't care. Pulled into my parking lot. The thing was moving slowly towards me. It was following me. It had started to come towards me in the first place, which is why I was like, action required. Like my just something in my brain was like, there is action required here. You must move. And so I ran away. Okay, my watch making her appearance finally. Um, so I run into my apartment, and my brother was there watching, babysitting my son, and it was going to be over my apartment by this time. I literally, with all the strength of somebody petrified, took him by his shirt, picked him up. He's 2 years younger than me, and he was an adult. I picked him up off the couch from the back, ran out the back patio with him, and said, "Look at that." And he sat there, and nothing was making noise. There was no, there's crickets and that kind of stuff that makes noise at night, frogs, crickets. There's that sound at night. There was nothing, no dogs barking. There was nothing. I looked around like, is there anybody else on a patio? Is anybody else saying this? And please don't let me be the only person who sees this. And my brother, who, as some of you who've been around here know, Uncle Mike isn't the most reliable witness I could have. So it starts, like just slowly move again. And Mike is like every cuss word in the book, holding on to me like he is my little brother again, holding on to me. And then boom, it's just gone. It just zoop, gone. Just boom, gone. My brother says, we should call the police. And I said, you're an effing idiot. I'm not calling anybody. I've seen those talk shows. They always make nut jobs out of them. So I believe, and you have seen UFO stories. You want to tell somebody about your UFO story real quick?
Yeah. I used to go to. Well, I live down in Cornwall at the moment, as like Tracy was saying. A lot of people will know that follow the channel. But I'm from up in Manchester, and when I first came out of the army, I used to go to a place called Duffstones Reservoir. Both mine and Tracy's stories are featured on her playlist
Yes.
if you want to go back to find them. But basically, a quick run through. I used to go out really early in the morning with my dog, um, and go hiking and climbing. And basically, I didn't realize it at the time till after. I think it was until after I did some research to do my story for the channel that Duffstones area is quite well known for UFOs. But there was three. It's really hard to explain. There was three reservoirs One was low down, like one was sort of ground level, and one was higher up. I'd walked around the first reservoir, and I'd walked around the second reservoir, and there was this object at the far end of the reservoir. It was it was fairly big, but it was it didn't have any texture to it other than it looked like water. If I know that doesn't, how can I explain that better? It just looked like water. It was on the water, but it looked
Mm-hmm.
like water.
Mm.
And I had a flask.
Like the way a clear jellyfish looks.
Yeah, supposedly, yeah.
Okay.
But if I'd have been if because it was in like a valley, if I'd have climbed round, if I'd have climbed round and was looking down on it, I probably wouldn't have been able to see it. If
Mm.
that makes sense, because it was
Right.
it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I sat down with the dog, and I didn't want to go towards. I didn't want to. I think I'm probably scared to go towards it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
That's smart.
but I was intrigued and really, really sort of. I'm getting goosebumps even just talking about it. And I don't know how long I watched it for. Um, it seems like it could have only been minutes, but then it was. It, I don't know. It just disappeared, just went. But I remember seeing little figures. Well, we were quite away from it, so small figures that were outside of it, and I I was like you. I was looking around to see if there's anybody else around that was there to see it, but I was the only one because it was early. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah. But I, to this day, still think that I was there longer than what I thought I was there. Like time sort of stood still, type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But do you believe that with your incident and my incident, that it take hang on, it takes a certain type of person to see something, and if you're open to seeing a UFO, are you
Mm-hmm.
more open to seeing a ghost, maybe, or are you more open to seeing other paranormal stuff? Because you're, if I was a complete skeptic and didn't believe it, I don't know how I would have coped. I think I would have just gone mad
Mm-hmm.
because it would be like seeing a dinosaur.
Right.
It'd be like
Right.
it would be like looking out of your bedroom window and seeing a dinosaur walking down the street.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be happening. It can't be. I know we've got films like Jurassic Park and things like that, but to see one walking down your street,
Mm-hmm.
your mind's not gonna comprehend it, is it at all?
Right.
And I don't know. I
Well,
just think,
my husband is was like the biggest skeptic. I mean, everybody in our house saw the shadow figure of a little boy. Everybody did. Every, when my youngest son was about 2 or 3, we used to think it was him standing at the top of the stairs, even though we had a gate over the stairs so you couldn't get up. We were all used to seeing a shadow figure walk down the stairs. It didn't scare anybody. We would sometimes comment about it, sometimes not. But he just did not believe it. And um, so when he saw it, when he finally saw it, rocked his world pretty hard. Like a true fear. And he's not. I mean, he's he's not a guy who gets scared.
No.
Not even the littlest bit. But I think what you said, like when you see something that you completely don't believe is possible to see, and you laugh it off, and you see it, it it I don't know, it changed his world forever. And then we lived in Phoenix, and we saw UFOs. And we didn't live well, we lived in Chandler, which is a suburb of Phoenix, but we saw UFOs. Um, and as everybody in the United States knows, well, I mean, one of the most famous sightings in the world is the Phoenix Lights.
Phoenix Lights, yeah.
And
I was watching about that yesterday, actually. Funnily, you should mention that.
well, it was that there's way more times that happened than just that time. And he followed the lights once with my kids in the car. We're a weird family. If we're gonna get abducted, we're all gonna get abducted. Um, but so he because he had taken my story of my UFO as like, this chick is crazy, but she's a pretty princess. So um, you put up with some things, some quirks.
I got
Please.
the UFOs. You
Please.
have to, you have to get it in, don't you?
I do. but, seriously, I don't know why. Why would you even? I would have ran as fast as possible. And I'm a huge skeptic, which is really the weirdest part of it all. It's like I read stories or hear stories. I'm like, I want proof. If you don't have a picture, it didn't happen. You know. Um, but with this Travis Walton thing, there's so many people who saw it. A happened, and B saw him taking the test. He was a logger. He wasn't he wasn't some guy who'd been trained as an Army Ranger or a Navy SEAL or a CIA agent on how to trick a polygraph. And let's say he was. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Travis Walton was some CIA agent who wanted to be poor and made fun of for the rest of his life. The other six people, they also took those tests,
Yeah,
and they too passed them.
yeah.
It's not a cabal of CIA trained people in polygraph tests. I mean, it's just irrational to think that they would all pass if there was a lie.
Do you know, just going back over something we were talking about, I just want to ask you a question about your UFO thing,
Uh huh.
about your experience
Uh
and
huh.
my experience. Did you feel scared?
I When it wasn't moving, I did not feel scared. I felt like there must be a logical explanation for this. And so that's what kicked into me. I was more like curious, as there must be a logical explanation. This must be the balloons they talk about. The city I grew up in was near an Air Force base. So I mean, so when the guy had said, "Hey, I think I saw a stealth," it wasn't out of the possibility
Yeah,
that
out of
he could have seen a
context.
stealth. Yeah, because we lived by an Air Force base, so it was like, okay. But it was evening when he was coming, and I honestly think what he thought he saw was a stealth was probably this. But he rationalized it as like, that must be
Stealth,
a
yeah.
stealth. Yeah. Because that was a big new thing that everybody talked about. So he was like, "Oh, that must have been it." But I think it had to have been what I saw.
Yeah.
I really do. So no, I wasn't scared when it started to move towards me. Now this is the weird part. When it started to move towards me, I felt in my head, like I said, first off, that part of your brain that like activates you when you're too scared to move,
Yeah.
that did kick in. Like, do something. But I felt in my head, this is harmful. The
Oh.
intent is not, the intent is to be harmful. I didn't think that it was going to fly over me and like throw me a Happy Meal. When it started to move towards me, it was intentional and it felt, I don't know.
McDonald's have gone up in the world.
Yeah, here you go. It's a really cool toy. It just it did feel like something changed from me observing it to it observing me. Is that maybe that's it? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that was the
Mm,
change. Did
yeah.
you feel scared?
No, that's the weird part. And I don't say that, I don't mean that in the way that, well, I'm um
So tough and
big,
brave.
yeah. I felt weird.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
even though it gives me goosebumps to think about it, I didn't feel, I didn't feel scared at all.
Mhm.
Which I think that goes back to the sort of the dinosaur scenario again. Maybe it's
Mhm.
because maybe if I saw it was like a common occurrence, maybe, and the negatives, the
Mhm.
people were getting abducted left, right, and centre from dove stones. Maybe
Right.
I would have been scared,
Yeah.
but
Just my luck.
yeah, oh shucks. But yeah, so I just wondered,
No, I
but yeah,
didn't
but yeah,
at first.
I think that you've got to. I do think there is something to say that if you're, it's like if you can see, if you've seen a ghost or a shadow figure,
Mhm.
and other people don't see them, and you can't
Right.
understand why they didn't see it,
Right. Right.
even though they're in the same room as you,
Yeah. Yes.
um, you can, you've got to be open. I think uh,
Well, you
to
yeah.
to everything paranormal. You're open and
I
you're
think
willing to.
if you can say to yourself that wasn't a stealth, if you can be honest with yourself. I mean, because this thing didn't it just didn't look like a stealth in any way possible. It didn't look like a stealth. So if you could be honest with yourself and go, you know what, that was something I've never seen before. There are options it could be, and one of them is a UFO. I think if you can do that, if you're that kind of a person, then you probably are more open to letting yourself believe that paranormal things happen.
Well, I saw one with Grace, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, During this time when we were locked down, in the
Mm-hmm.
main lockdown, and Grace wasn't. She was really open to seeing it. She was sort of excited,
Oh yeah, that doesn't
really.
surprise me.
Um, and we tried to look at it logically.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be a bird? And it was too
Mm-hmm.
high up for a bird. And if it had been a bird, it would have been huge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we watched it for ages. But she wasn't scared at all. She was more intrigued than anything.
Yes. Well. First off, you've raised her to. Uh, uh, I just put this comment down on the comments the other day that children are open to seeing things, and it's adults who tell them that they're not seeing them. So then eventually they grow up and they become adults who tell their kids that they're not seeing them. But if you allow your children to, like in my house, I have I experienced paranormal things before I ever had children, and so when my kids started saying, I, mom, there's a man standing there. I didn't tell them they weren't seeing a man standing there, and that's what you've done with your kids. You haven't told them that they're wrong and that they're not seeing what they can't believe what their eyes are seeing. Their eyes are lying. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of people who grow. There's a lot of people who are adults who won't believe their lying eyes. And I think that's because we've been taught that. I haven't. Even my grandparents who were, uber, you know, religious and church starters, they believed that you children could see things that we couldn't see, and which is really weird to me. But so I think that Grace would be open. I totally could see that she would be curious and not afraid.
mm. How do you feel about aliens, extraterrestrials, whatever you want to call them?
Well, the
And
thing I wanted to talk about. We'll finish your sentence, and I'll see if I'm going the same way.
we'll just call them aliens. I mean, there's a lot of different names for them now,
Uh-huh.
but we'll just call them aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there is any truth behind the fact that you could have aliens and certain parts of the government working together at some sort of exchange program, sinister exchange program, where they're
I
sharing
think
their
we do right now. it's
yeah.
it's crazy over here. Um, you know, well, as we talked before, um, Travis said that he saw human, what looked like human, and I said to you, well, maybe it was an alien that presented himself to Travis because that would be the least frightening thing to see. Would be another human. So, you know what I mean? Like if I'm going to sneak into Dogland and I don't want to freak out dogs, I'm going to if I have the ability to change what I look like, I'll choose to look like a dog, right? So maybe he presented himself to Travis as a human, or maybe they can look like humans. And if they can look like humans and function in society like humans, maybe they are. This is getting way out in psycho
No, no,
conspiracy theory land, but maybe they could be around us. I mean, there has been documentation of the same shape of spaceship and aliens since before Christ,
yeah.
ancient times.
Mm.
So why do we think we're so special that's not happening, or we're so special that we're the only thing that can exist? We're not that special. Believe me, some of us are pretty dumb. Sometimes I look and I go, "You won the race." Okay. But it is possible. You are the one that won the race,
How to make friends and influence people. That's the way to your taste.
Well, we are all the ones who won the race. So it's true. But the point of the story is, could there it, they okay, so the government's already said, hey, guess what? There's UFOs. They haven't said there's aliens yet, but I mean, somebody's driving those. They don't drive themselves. Drive. They're driving whatever they're doing, flying them. So if he saw one that would look like a human, that's the part that really, actually, if I zero in on that story, that is the part that really is the creepiest part to me.
Do you think there could be more than one species of alien?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're a tiny, tiny, tiny particle in a massive, we can't even comprehend how massive area of space and time. I mean, let's say okay, let's say you're a Christian, for example, or whatever religion you are, do you think that your God is so powerful that that God, he or she, is only capable of paying attention to whether you get to scratch off lottery ticket or not? It's very limiting as to believe that we are all there is, and we just take up too much time to be able to for an all powerful God. If you don't believe in God, then again, we are not that special. There, it's very likely that there are other planets with other species where the same thing happened there. They're whatever they are.
Do you know something I don't get? And this is probably going to upset everybody, this, or a certain amount of people, but I can't understand why, if we found, if an if aliens landed tomorrow, and obviously they weren't here to blow us up or eat us, and they were similar to, say, grey aliens, but they were friendly. A lot of When you watch a lot of these programs, you say that it would wreck, it would completely destroy religion, because
Mm.
obviously, why could God not have created them as well?
That's what I'm saying. This is a God that you believe has all the power, all the abilities, but you're so special that all he does is sit around and takes care of you. You know, it's likely that there would be other beings made. And it's funny that you said that because in that documentary, it was interesting because it was like I don't know, it's several years old, a few years old, and somebody on there says, the government won't tell us that there are aliens or that there are UFOs because as humans we would panic, and then we would start to think of ourselves, if we knew that there was other civilizations on other planets, we would start to call ourselves earthlings rather than um, Americans and Germans and Japanese. We would call each other earthlings, and that would decrease the amount of power politicians and countries have. So they would never tell us there was UFOs. And it was interesting to see that happen because that did not play out that way. Because we were told in the middle of a pandemic, and it was just like brushed off just dust off your shoes.
Yeah,
People did not panic. People did not start calling themselves earthlings. Um, it it just didn't happen. But it was interesting to see the perspective from 5 years ago of the fear of what would happen if they came out and how they would never come out, and with the reality of how it did end up being nothing, which is also very weird. Don't you think that's weird? Don't you
yeah,
think that the government said and released videos and said there are UFOs, and we said, okay, but I am sick and tired of being in my house all day long. That was our response as humans. How
yeah.
weird. How weird is that?
Mm.
That's, I mean, they don't. So they really want to come here? Is it like shooting fish in a barrel? But I want a restaurant. I don't know. It's just so strange that it was like didn't even make a blip on the news. I just was like, and in today's news, the government has verified there are UFOs, and also it's going to rain tomorrow for 30% of the day. Blah blah blah. The temperature's going to be 75 degrees, and we just went, okay, weirdest thing.
Yeah.
So I do want to mention something else about Travis
Well
on
then,
the skeptic side, because we are talking about Travis. On the skeptical side, let me read this. Um, 30 years after the book's release, so that would have been like 2000, I don't know. It's too early in the morning to do math. Well, Travis appeared on the Fox game show, The Moment of Truth, and he was asked if he, in fact, was abducted by a UFO on November 5th, 1975, to which he replied yes, and the polygraph test determined that he was lying. Now, it here's my thing. What do you think about that, Rob?
say that I've lost. You've lost me somehow.
Okay,
Just
Travis appeared on a game show on the Fox channel,
right,
and the game show was called The Moment of Truth.
right.
And he was asked if he was, in fact, abducted by a UFO on November 5th, 1975. And he replied yes. But the polygraph test determined that he was lying.
Right. What kind? If it was on a game show, I wouldn't take any notice whatsoever.
Right. That's kind of how I feel like, too. Like, don't they really have control over what it says? I mean, I don't know how to read a polygraph exam. So they could show me this all day long. It could be the readout from my heartbeat for all I know.
Yeah,
It could be an EKG, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's a polygraph." And so I think that would be easy just to. I think just to get publicity, they could do that and try and mess with them.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would give you any pause.
No, it wouldn't change how I feel.
So, do you believe that Travis Walton was abducted by UFOs
Yes, I do.
or a UFO? You do.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, there are people that I hate to say it, but well, first off, he really did make none of them made any money off of this. They didn't have anything to gain; they had everything to lose, and they lost it.
Yeah.
So, why would you? First off, that class guy was saying that they were going to lose the contract because they hadn't got enough done. So what happened is they decided to make up this elaborate story so that they wouldn't lose the contract, and they still have their jobs. Well, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Like, take a spark plug out, don't and throw it somewhere like, oh my god, look, we lost a spark plug, we cannot move our machinery. We don't get sit there together and go, all right guys, here's the deal. What we're going to say is that Travis was taken by a UFO. Travis, you have to disappear for 5 days. You can't even be in the woods because they're going to come look for you, because they're going to try and find your bodies. We, on the other hand, are going to be arrested and charged with your murder, and then you'll finally come and they'll know that we didn't murder you, obviously, and you'll tell them that you were abducted by a UFO. How's that? Perfect. That isn't even, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just like you said. They too much to lose, not nothing to gain, and
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, people are. I don't understand skeptics. I don't. It's like they people who believe in certain things. The majority of people that believe in paranormal, and I'm that when I say paranormal, I'm on about blanket everything. UFOs, ghosts, shadow figures,
Mm.
just paranormal, supernatural. You don't get very many in my 51 years that I've came across people who try and push on you their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually pretty easygoing.
Right.
But skeptics
Right.
are like, you're wrong, it cannot, it's just rubbish. You can't. And I think to myself, okay, fair enough, that's what you believe. But, you know,
Why
there's
are you
two
so
sides to it.
angry?
Yeah. And yeah, that's real. That's a good way of putting it, Trace. How, why don't you just open your mind a little bit? Why be so close to everything? I don't get it.
Well, I think I understand that. I think I know why.
How's that?
You, so, have you ever lost your child in the grocery store or a store?
Yeah,
Okay, you know that fear,
yeah,
and then when you find them and they're safe, that fear turns into your anger, just
yeah,
because you don't, you know what I mean? Like that, you don't, you have this strong emotion, and it goes from being fear to grateful to anger, like in a flash. They're running out in the street. You're afraid. You grab them. Your fear is now anger that they ran on the street. I think that's what brings the anger, is because they're fearful and they're angry that it could. What if they let their mind think? What if it's true? Then their whole belief system could fall apart. Maybe their whole religious system could fall apart. Maybe they're afraid they would stop believing in God if they believed in UFOs and aliens. Maybe they don't even know. They can't pinpoint that that's what they're afraid of. But they're afraid of. There are a lot of people who are afraid of facts. It's now here's a true story. There was uh, uh, what am I trying to say? An experiment done at, I'm not going to say the school, but it was a top Ivy League university that said that people of one particular set of political beliefs and religious beliefs base their decision making skills light up in the where the fear is based in your brain. So when they're showing them pictures, of different things, when their
yeah,
fear is the overruling emotion in their brain, where people who are of this other political kind of a stance or religious stance, their fear part of their brain does not light up, and so I and the people whose brain lights up with fear, if they're showed um, a fact that doesn't line up with their belief, they don't believe it. They it it's like their brain will not process that as a fact. It's just not possible because it doesn't line up with my belief. It was a scientific study done. You guys can go look it up. Um, um, so I think that that's what it is. You have people that are basing their view on fear, and if it's true, um, uh, if there are ghosts, what if they don't? What if they get stuck? Or and they become a ghost? Or what if there are UFOs? And what will that, like you said, will that ruin religion if there's aliens? Which I don't think would have that effect on me, because I would think, okay, God can juggle, but some people don't feel that way. Um, And then they have the people who do believe in paranormal stuff, but they believe just in the bad stuff. Like, well, they can believe in angels, right? They believe in
Yeah.
angels, which in itself is a paranormal concept,
Yeah.
and demons. So there's not in their belief system, which I was raised in. There's not much in between. There's no room for anything in between. It's good or bad.
Yeah.
So I think that that's why skeptics are skeptical. It's just plain, will this rock my world? If I believe this, I could my world could change. And we probably are like that. A lot of us are probably like that to some degree.
Yeah. It just surprises me how angry they get and how.
Yeah, that's why it makes me think it's fear. Fear,
Yeah.
a lot of emotions are actually fear. Jealousy is fear. Anger can a lot of times be fear.
Yeah. It's sad, really, isn't it? I mean,
Well, yeah, because it doesn't affect them. It doesn't affect them in the least. So I don't understand. Getting on talk shows and ranting and raving, or doing a documentary where you rant and rave about how this isn't real and this is a hoax and go after people and why? Why? Well, don't you have something better to do with your time? Like it does. It literally makes no difference in your life.
yeah.
If I believe in paranormal stuff.
I just think you restricting yourself really to having not having any type of belief system. I think it's almost like having no imagination. You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Maybe they
it's
don't.
you know. Well, anyway, that's sort of going off topic, but yeah, to answer your question again, yeah, I do believe it. I do believe he was abducted um, by aliens, and I think a lot of people are. A lot of people are now, and they've found lots of different implants, haven't they? Not on Travis, but people have had things removed from them
Hmm.
where there's no entry wound.
Hmm.
They they just find them like in their head, in the
Really?
neck, or yeah, little
Hmm.
pieces of metal with and when you scan it, it comes up with like a barcode,
What?
and yeah, so it's
Hmm.
it's it is scary.
Well, I did a video the other day about the the mark between my eyes, the
Yeah,
the mark over the third eye, which Maya also has. And there are people who leave messages on my comments that say they believe that people who have that mark, that scar between their eyes, were at some point maybe not abducted, but maybe I don't came in contact with um, alien life form that put something like some sort of a, I hate to use the word probe, but long probe into your brain to get to your pineal gland. Um, and that's why we have that mark. I always thought, and I said in the video, I always thought that I had that mark between my eyes because I had a horrendous case of chickenpox. But looking back on my childhood photos, I didn't have that mark there, and which is also very strange because, like I said in that thing, like one day I looked in the mirror and I how did that work? How did that work? Like I didn't have a scar, and then the next day I do have a scar, and everybody in my life believes that it's a chickenpox scar. Reminded me of in Star Wars when he says, Obi-Wan says, these are not the droids you're looking for. And, I just went out the rest of my life saying that's my chickenpox scar. And then when Maya had one, I don't remember ever noticing hers until she got to be a little bit older. So, a lot of people think that it's because we came in contact with some sort of a alien something or other.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I don't know. I do know that a lot of people have it. And when you start looking at people and noticing it, you're going to be surprised
Yeah.
how often you see that on people all the time.
Yeah.
So, anyway, this was like half Travis Walton, half our UFO stories, half psychology. And that's 3 halves, and that's not even possible.
Oh, dear me.
Well, I enjoyed this, Rob. Do you have anything else you'd like to point out? I do.
Just
Travis, you can stop dyeing your hair red. It's okay.
Well, I was going to say to people who listen to this, whether you believe, I'm presuming if you're going to be tuning into this, then you're going to have some kind of, you're not going to be a complete skeptic. But
Mm-hmm.
if there are people out there that are skeptical who are listening to this, or if you believe, but you have got friends that are skeptical, tell them to maybe have a little bit more of an open mind, and maybe life will be a little bit more interesting
Mm-hmm.
if you are willing to um, accept that there could be things out there that aren't completely run of the mill.
Mysterious.
Yep.
I really think that life would be better if we had tooth fairies, unicorns, Santa Claus.
Oh dear
But
me.
no, we have Bigfoot, aliens, and demons. Woo! Well, thank you for doing this with me, Rob. I enjoyed it.
Not at all. Anytime. Pretty princess.
Now I need to send you more shillings of love.
Oh dear me.
Well, if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to be notified when my content goes live, would you please go ahead and click that bell and subscribe? And share these videos with people that you think might find them interesting. I would really appreciate that. So, if that's all, Rob, then I guess we can say good morning. Good night.
Good morning. Good night. Good morning. Good night. Good morning. Wherever you are.
Bye.
Bye.